from Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Your source for the Department of Energy's environmental cleanup news. Energycast starts now.
Hi everyone, I'm Summer Dash. Welcome to your February episode of Energycast. Let's get started with some Energy Bites.
Appreciate all of the innovation from the folks who had the idea and worked on it, and appreciated all the collaboration and the working together from all the different kinds of people that it took to make something like this happen.
A generator with highly radioactive contents is out of Oak Ridge. It was shipped to a facility in the Northeast and will help power some exciting new projects for the Department of Defense. We're going to take a look at what goes into transferring something like this and how it's going to be used now.
You talk with a lot of people that when they retire, you find there's a conflict, they don't know what to do, and it's been a real easy transition for us. I'm looking forward to it.
What's not to love about retirement? We are checking in on a beloved company president who recently took the leap. While we could speak for hours about Jim Boland's accomplishments, we got the inside story on his career from both he and his wife. In the spirit of Valentine's Day, we are getting to know the Bolands and how two incredible careers brought two incredible people together. Find out what a Navy ship, the Blue Angels, and Tennessee have to do with it.
I see how cleanup has happened in Washington State, Idaho, South Carolina. I won't name every site, but you know there's a lot of them out there in the complex. They all do it a little bit differently, but there's really something magical about Oak Ridge.
Find out exactly why the magic of Oak Ridge drew Erik Olds here. We are getting to know our new deputy manager. All right, imagine moving a piece of equipment containing highly radioactive material across state lines. It is a massive task, and it's done. The material was scheduled to remain in storage for decades before being disposed, but leaders with a private company had other ideas that could get it out of Oak Ridge to be reused for something beneficial. The recent transfer of a radioisotope thermoelectric generator, or RTG, from Oak Ridge to a commercial nuclear facility in the Northeast is a unique example of one man's trash becoming another's treasure. Here's a look at 500,000 curies of radioactive material getting loaded up at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. The 500-watt generator, built in the 1980s as part of the byproduct utilization program, would have spent another few decades housed here had this opportunity not come up.
So it gets from here on this truck to where it's going in Pennsylvania, and it represents kind of an interesting approach that we had to take, which was to get certain exemptions through the department to be able to transfer it and use a federal driver to do that. So as soon as it leaves OREM, it hits the road, and we hope in less than 12 hours it'll be at a facility in Pittsburgh.
Spoiler alert, it made it. After leaving our area, it was safely delivered to that facility in Pennsylvania. Workers will put the equipment into a hot cell to start disassembly to retrieve the material. And that material generates heat that can serve as a power source.
So really think of it as hot rocks in a box. You've got decay material that you encapsulate it, and it generates heat, and you convert the heat into electricity.
We're talking providing power to remote and hard-to-reach places, from the depths of the ocean to outer space.
But with radioisotope power systems, you're looking at small amounts of power in a very small form factor. Think of size of a microwave, or 2 or 3 times the size of a microwave, that allows you to provide power in these really remote areas. So think of it like a nuclear battery, a thermal battery that allows you to provide power in these capabilities, drawing interest from multiple federal agencies. Zeno CEO Tyler Bernstein says he's working with the Navy, NASA, and Space Force.
So I think seeing the demand is really when we realized that we were onto something. But one of the biggest Achilles heels of a lot of nuclear projects and a lot of nuclear technologies is the supply chain. And seeing the BUP 500, that this fuel is here, it exists, and we have an opportunity to paint this win-win-win partnership for multiple parties, really helped crystallize that vision that we had.
A vision that was born just down the road at Vanderbilt University while a student in 2018, and inspired by the BUP 500, Bernstein started chasing the dream.
5 years is it's a long time, and going from there to here, thinking of all of the countless hours and hours and hours of meetings and memos that went into this being a reality is absolutely surreal. But at the same time, this is the beginning of the work. We now have the fuel that we need to begin building and delivering these power systems.
He says he recognizes the responsibility of handling these missions and the weight that comes with this material. Weight now off the shoulders of the Oak Ridge team.
This will represent a huge risk reduction for the laboratory to get that many Curies off-site at one time, and at the same time represent a wonderful opportunity for reuse of the material instead of just burying it, which is what we originally had planned to do.
It usually costs $20,000 to $25,000 per Curie for processing and disposal. Through this public-private partnership, the taxpayer saves. It's a model leaders hope to see implemented again.
So if there are folks out there who see this and who have ideas, really encourage them to bring them forward, right? We're always looking for folks who have creative and innovative ideas about better ways of doing things. We have a lot of problems to solve around the country, and having partners who can work with us and find better ways of doing business is something we always look forward to.
Just take it from the team here, who took a 40-year-old problem and made it a possibility. That generator, by the way, was never actually deployed. Zeno will be using the strontium-90 from it to fuel their clean energy projects. Oak Ridge recently welcomed some international visitors. Leaders from Japan's Nuclear Damage Compensation and Decommissioning Facilitation Corporation and the Tokyo Electric Power Company traveled to the site. They wanted to learn more about how the community reuses land after EM completes cleanup projects and how EM involves the public in that decision-making. The weather didn't cooperate for a full tour, unfortunately, but you can see they were able to make it out to the East Tennessee Technology Park on their trip, and they also traveled to EM's Hanford site in Washington. This is part of an ongoing information exchange as those officials plan the path ahead at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station. We've got an update on one of the highest priority projects at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Contractor Isotech is now in phase 2 of the uranium-233 processing effort. That involves tackling material with doses 15 to 20 times higher than previous batches. The nation's entire inventory of that material has been stored at ORNL for decades. It was originally created in the 1950s for potential use in reactors. These days, however, you may recall a rare isotope is being extracted from the U-233 to be used in cancer treatment. Now, once that's done, ultimately, the goal is to get rid of the remaining material because it is risky and costly to keep safe and secure. The third and final phase of this processing campaign is expected to be finished in 2026. And we are just getting word of an update on the distribution of that cancer treatment. TerraPower, the company receiving isotopes extracted from U-233, has distributed the first samples to 2 pharmaceutical companies. This is another really big step in this process of getting this drug to patients. Those pharmaceutical companies will now conduct drug trials and continue this research. All right, now to an update on the Beta 1 facility at the Y-12 National Security Complex. The above ground floors, those are now deactivated. Only the basement is left to go before teardown can safely begin. Crews had been working toward this milestone since 2020. Now, Beta 1 is a 210,000 square foot building. It was constructed as part of the Manhattan Project in 1944 to enrich uranium during World War II. Later, it was converted to a lab for fusion energy technology. Workers have faced a lot of challenges with this building, though. At one point, water was filling the basement due to the old failed sump pumps. And they found a way to pump and treat 2 million gallons from the basement to move the project forward. They've taken out asbestos and more than 100 feet of brittle thorium-contaminated piping. The final step is deactivating that basement and then, of course, demolition. We will keep you posted on that progress. Crews over at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory are preparing for the next major demolition project at that site. Teams are busy sampling, removing old filters, and working to decontaminate former support facilities for the graphite reactor. These tasks are laying the groundwork for their near-term demolition. The buildings are located on a hill overlooking the historic graphite reactor. The graphite reactor is a key component of the Manhattan Project National Historical Park and a major attraction for visitors at ORNL. This project will eliminate risks and enhance access around the historic landmark. EM's goal to build a new disposal facility took another step forward this month. Cleanup contractor UCOR recently awarded a $20 million contract for the next phase of that project. Under the contract, CTI and Associates will clear and grade the area and install a cover over 25 acres. The small business will also move water and utilities. Crews will begin mobilizing in March, and field work is scheduled to be complete this October. EM will gather groundwater data from this area to inform the final design of the EM disposal facility. All right, so you just heard about some specific project updates. Before we head to break, we want to give you an overview on what's happening now and where EM is going next across the Oak Ridge Reservation. With major work wrapping up at ETTP, our mission now focuses on transforming ORNL and Y12 in the years ahead. Here's how. The Oak Ridge Office of Environmental Management is working on a massive scale, and that means big changes at Oak Ridge National Laboratory and the Y12 National Security Complex. Employees at ORNL are conducting world-leading research in almost every category of DOE's diverse portfolio. While the east and west ends of the site boast modern facilities with cutting-edge technology, the central campus is a snapshot into the past. The area contains scores of old, contaminated labs and reactor facilities that date back to the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. That's where we come in. Our projects are cleaning out and demolishing those facilities, removing inventories of waste, and opening land that ORNL can reuse to make its next big discovery. Only miles away, Y12 is one of the nation's most important national security sites. We are also responsible for tearing down dozens of buildings at that site that previously supported operations during the Manhattan Project and Cold War. Those projects are clearing away massive, deteriorating buildings and making room for new facilities that help ensure America remains at the forefront of national defense. Our cleanup at Y12 is addressing environmental risks, enabling modernization, and clearing space to support national security missions. Progress is already visible at both sites, and we are committed to achieving our vision to enhance safety and create new opportunities for the region.
I'm going to have my family right here with me, which is amazing.
How his new job is bringing his entire family together.
When I moved to Oak Ridge, I think in '96, I think that's when it really...
Who says long-distance relationships never work out? We've got quite the love story for you this Valentine's Day. As Isotech President Jim Bolin heads off into retirement, he is reflecting on the two loves of his life, his career, and Nancy. How to make it all work even when distance is a factor. You're going to hear from both of them in just a few minutes. Big stories happening across the complex right now, bringing you major EM news from coast to coast. EM's waste isolation pilot plant recorded a decade high for shipments in 2023. WIP is the nation's only repository for the disposal of transuranic waste. The facility received 489 shipments. That figure is almost double the previous year. With the steady flow of shipments coming in, crews at WIP are working to create additional space for future waste disposal. Crews started mining out a new panel. Those employees are working more than 2,000 feet underground. That new panel will help ensure EM sites nationwide can dispose of their inventories of transuranic waste. Crews in Idaho were a major contributor. The site sent 9,300 containers of transuranic waste last year. That reduced the overall inventory stored at Idaho National Laboratory by 22%. With 30,000 containers to go, the site plans to make at least 12 shipments per week throughout this year. At the Hanford site, crews are demolishing a former chemical storage area. Workers are removing 20 tanks from the 211A area near the plutonium-uranium extraction plant, or Purex. The project is scheduled to finish this spring. It allows workers to begin cleanup activities inside the main Purex facility. In New York, crews are making steady progress addressing the main plant processing building. That is one of the last major facilities at EM's West Valley site. Most recently, crews took down the largest of 9 liquid waste tanks, weighing in at 40,000 pounds. Demolition of the main plant process building is set to be complete in the next fiscal year. EM has released its priorities for the year across all 15 remaining cleanup sites in the U.S. That list includes 3 major tasks for Oak Ridge. Specific goals mentioned are to process 35 canisters of material from the U-233 disposition project and begin demolition of the Alpha 2 facility at Y-12, complete soil remediation at the East Tennessee Technology Park. We've been covering each of these projects very closely. We will continue to keep you updated on their progress right here on Energycast. This Business Buzz shows us just how influential our careers are on destiny, both ours and others. Jim Bolin of Atkins Realis Isotech Systems is proof of that. This Valentine's Day, we learn love of the job and love of another can go hand in hand. If you ask Jim and Nancy Bolin to tell you the story of the first time they met.
And I walked in and I met him and I just walked out of the room and went, oh my God.
It's impossible not to feel them beaming. It was the mid-90s and both were stationed on the same Navy ship when Nancy went to meet the executive officer.
I thought, my goodness, this is going to be a fun trip.
With work in the way, their romance had to wait.
When I moved to Oak Ridge, I think in '96, I think that's when it really was like we're meant for each other.
His career here began at Y-12 National Security Complex. Meantime, Nancy was heading to Pensacola for her big opportunity.
An interesting turning point or note for us was when Nancy got selected to be on the Blue Angels as her executive officer, and she knew that she was going to be on the road a lot.
Together would have to wait some more. Bolin was busy with the startup of the enriched uranium operation.
What I call the Thorium Express campaign, where we actually started with an empty room, blank sheet of paper, and a dream that we would be able to process material in glove boxes, which is kind of the forerunner of what we're doing in the hot cells now.
After that, he spent a few years in Ohio at the Portsmouth Gaseous Diffusion site, but a call from a former boss would bring him back to East Tennessee. In 2010, he became the president of Isotech Systems.
I would say that in all the different jobs that I've held, the one that I am most proud of and I think has been the best project and job of my career has been at Isotech.
Why is that?
It's, one, it's the people.
Though his accomplishments are stellar, it's the reputation he has for creating a warm and open work environment that shines.
Just have believed in taking care of your people. You're not going to get the job done without taking care of the people. You need to listen to them, and get their ideas, let them know they've been heard, and you know, just again take care of them. It's key to it all.
Do you feel like you did that?
Yes, I do. I do.
Which is why he feels comfortable stepping away. And as he does, some sage advice.
Go for your dreams and don't give up.
Which he means both professionally and personally.
I'm really happy for him.
Despite the distance, Jim and Nancy got married in 2000 and finally made their way back to each other 6 years after that.
between both the daughters, we have 6 grandchildren.
And dogs. He fondly recalls meeting this one while with his daughters.
The next thing I know, they bring this little puppy, put her in my arms, and they take off. And so,
No, but the dog had a name.
but the dog had a name,
Sunshine.
Sunshine.
Like so many times before, each detail brings another smile.
That's my nickname for Nancy,
Theirs really is a love like the movies.
My
Sunshine.
name was Sunshine.
You could even say they're heading off into the sunset.
The cruise director has scheduled, we have a 4-day cruise at the end of February with our younger daughter, her 2 boys, and Nancy's sister. And then in June, we're going to go on a 7-day cruise to the Norwegian fjords.
And then it's back home with a zip code they waited years to share.
A lot of people that when they retire, you find there's a conflict, they don't know what to do, and it's been a real easy transition for us. So I'm looking forward to it.
But for a couple that has called so many places home, you might wonder where that is now that retirement is on the horizon.
And are you staying here? Are we
Yep.
getting to keep you?
Yes, yes. In fact, when we came back here, we said we're going to build our house, our forever house here. And so that's what we did.
Though the sun is setting on his career in Oak Ridge, it's no surprise Bolin won't go far.
Yeah.
Because as he has proven, the people make the home, not the place. And the Bolins plan to continue their volunteer work with Smoky Mountain Service Dogs. This was at his last company-wide meeting where Isotech announced a donation to that organization. As for Isotech, Jim will tell you he is most proud of their work on a project that is saving lives. Right now, that team is disposing of that Cold War legacy material we mentioned earlier, extracting a rare isotope being used in cancer treatment. That work will continue under the leadership of Sarah Schaefer. She has more than 30 years of experience in nuclear operations and waste management. For the last 3 years, she has served as the Isotech project manager. She was also involved in the contract expansion with TerraPower. That's the company using that medical isotope we mentioned earlier in this show. It's exclusive, and one of our teammates made the list. Find out how Tommy Morgan feels about taking a spot on the 40 under 40 list.
As opposed to trying to come in and say we need to be doing things differently or trying to make it like a different site or even Washington, D.C.
Some leadership changes are happening right now in Oak Ridge. We're getting to know Erik Olds, find out his leadership style, goals, and what's ahead for our new deputy manager. The Knoxville News Sentinel recently held an awards ceremony for one of the region's most coveted recognitions, its annual 40 under 40 list. A member of the UCOR team is one of those honorees. Energycast's Cameron Jacobs spoke with Tommy Morgan.
Actually did not think it was a real email at first. I thought maybe somebody was spamming me or playing a joke on me, but after looking at it for a few minutes, I realized it was legitimate. First thing I did was talk to my wife, and we celebrated a little bit together because it's a pretty big honor to be recognized.
This was the moment Tommy Morgan found out he was the winner of the Knoxville News Sentinel's prestigious 40 under 40 award.
It was really neat to get to speak with some of the other honorees and hear a little bit about their careers and how they got there.
A lot of hard work led to his recognition, but Morgan also gives a lot of credit to his teams for where he is today.
At UCOR, I've gotten to work on a number of really interesting projects, at the molten salt reactor experiment, other projects at OREM. I acknowledge that I do have some accomplishments from my time at TVA that I'm very proud of as well. But no, being part of this team has allowed me to take on bigger and bigger roles, and I think that's kind of what led to this award.
The office isn't the only place Morgan excels. He's an all-star at home too, with a strong focus on family life.
So ice hockey player, still play a lot of ice hockey, lots of home improvement at the house. I like to do woodworking. And of course, kids stuff, coaching lacrosse and going to kids gymnastics meets and things like that.
Morgan is maintaining the approach that landed him on this prestigious list. He says he's continuing to look for ways to expand his knowledge and experience.
Yeah, so I just started a new position with UCOR in October of last year, and so got my feet under me now, and I'm hoping to continue to learn more about the nuclear operations projects that we've got, build a strong team, continue to have successes and celebrating with the team.
For Energycast, I'm Cameron Jacobs.
We've got a new boss, so we really hope he likes this episode. Erik Olds joins the team from headquarters. He had been serving as the Chief Communications Director before taking over as Deputy Manager here in Oak Ridge. He has worked for DOE for more than 30 years. We caught up with him as he was settling into the new office to chat about future plans and what drew him to East Tennessee.
I spent time at quite a few EM sites around the complex, not Oak Ridge, and that's really one of the reasons I wanted to come here and learn about this site and work with this team because it's so amazing.
OREM's new deputy manager has worked at sites across the country.
I see how cleanup has happened in Washington State, Idaho, South Carolina. I won't name every site, but there's a lot of them out there in the complex. They all do it a little bit differently, but there's really something magical about Oak Ridge.
What he saw here was enough to make him and his entire family want to call it home.
One of my daughters is here. My son is on the West Coast, but moving to the East Coast, so he's going to join us here as well because he likes this area as well. And my other daughter is in Virginia, and when her husband is done with the Marines, she's going to move to this area. So I'm going to have my family right here with me, which is amazing.
It wasn't just the area that drew them here. It was also the people doing the work.
I mean, good work gets done here. But more than that, there's the amazing relationships with the regulators, with the community, with the public and stakeholders. And that sort of alignment really leads to success you don't necessarily see at all of our sites around the complex. I want to help enable that sort of work to continue and more of it, as opposed to trying to come in and say we need to be doing things differently or trying to make it like a different site or even Washington, D.C.
He's optimistic about this next chapter.
There's a lot left to be done, and it's kind of like a book that's not yet completely written yet. I mean, there's been a lot of success here. There's a good model for making more success. But there's a lot of room for how we can achieve that success together, and it's fun being part of that story.
And we do have more leadership team updates for you. Laura Wilkerson has been selected as Chief Engineer. She's tasked with helping OREM find solutions to some of the biggest technical challenges facing cleanup at ORNL and Y12. Wilkerson has served in a variety of positions for OREM and also carries more than 30 years of experience. Both began their new roles last month. Next month, we are getting a chance to sit down with Oak Ridge's new city manager, Randy Heeman. We're going to ask Heeman about his move to East Tennessee and his goals as he begins his tenure in Oak Ridge. We will also share some special content from the Waste Management Symposia happening in Phoenix, Arizona. Several members of our leadership team will travel there to share updates about recent Oak Ridge success stories. And finally, a local team is set to receive one of the Department of Energy's highest recognitions. We're going to have that and much more in March. Thank you for joining us for Energycast. New episodes come out on the third Sunday of the month. You can watch on air and online. We post Energycast episodes on our Facebook and YouTube pages the day after they air. Head on over to follow us on our social media accounts. We are always happy to answer questions and share information with you there as well. And remember, if you work in environmental management in Oak Ridge, keep us in mind if you come across a story. We are always looking for news tips and story ideas from all across the reservation. Email your idea to oakridgeem@orem.doe.gov. Let us know there. You might just see it right here. See you next time.